Chakravarti all just heard Reliance Industries Chairman Mukesh Ambani speak on the 45th annual general meeting. Now, several key announcements have been made. Reliance Industries has, in fact, announced the Jio rollout as a big headline by Diwali in key cities and a rollout to each and every town in India by 2023 December. There's been a tie-up with Qualcomm, several ties with the tech majors. There's an announcement on the FMCG business to be announced this year as well. Another big point in discuss over this issue. I have with me to discuss more details about and analyze the current GM announcements. Siddhartha Ravi joins in, managing editor of this TV, and I'm also joined by Krishna Gopal, executive editor of this day magazine. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you so much for taking the time out on this discussion. So, big announcements have been made. Siddhartha, let me start with you. What stood out for you among the announcements?
Well, all the big announcements apart, it's very clear that 5G is the most anticipated, because remember, this has been the most recent investment by RIL. RIL has been a capex heavy company for many years now, and that included a phase where most of the new capex went only into Jio, and we saw now a fresh round of capex by way of the spectrum purchases of 5G, and obviously monetizing that is crucial from a shareholder point of view. So if anyone who is watching us is a shareholder of RIL, I think the biggest thing that a shareholder will probably be taking note of and comfort from is that his company, where he or she is a shareholder, is now going to leverage that latest extra investment in 5G spectrum very soon. And a Diwali roadmap has been put out. And we know from earlier on that the design of the Jio network was always in a manner that it could adapt very fast to the latest technology. And that is why the switchover in terms of adding the 5G layer onto the existing 4G network layer will be easy. The faster these companies launch, and we know that after today's announcement, you will have more detailing being done by Bharti Airtel, which is the second major contender in the 5G space. So I would say this is Diwali Dhamaka Redux. For those who remember telecom, Diwali Dhamaka was the first foray of Reliance in telecom. There was also a monsoon hangama, but I'm talking about Jio's Diwali Dhamaka, and that Diwali Dhamaka will now happen in the 5G world. And one quick observation, Sakshi, before I hand it back to you, which is the RIL chairman in the metaverse. I think if you're talking tech, that also needs to be taken note of.
Absolutely. So let me take it across to the other, tech path right here. Krishna, you have been following technology through and through and Reliance Industries. What did you make of the announcements on? I mean, I was thrown off a little bit because I don't follow tech so closely, but with this standalone 5G, private 5G solution, and also this cloud PC, all of those terms were thrown at us. What do all of these mean, and how will it change our lives?
I think it's, let's just go back in time. I think it's quite remarkable that all this has happened in the space of 6 years. They launched Jio in 2016, and the difference is quite interesting because they came in as a challenger in 2016. Now they're the leader. So the ability to drive the market in terms of coming from behind as opposed to now controlling the market is quite remarkable. The disruption, the way I see it, has happened at two levels. One is at the customer level, which is pretty much you and I having the router at home and now getting 5G services. More importantly, at the enterprise level, because they're going to have a whole host of companies which are going to be their customers. And the little things seem quite interesting. The whole thing of having the router at home without the last mile, I think is a clear takeaway. There have been a couple of interesting announcements. One, they put in 88,000 crores for 5G spectrum. He's outlined another 200,000 crores as capex. So both put together is about 2.9 lakh crores. He's put in another 25,000 crores for the digital part of the IPL, which is another 3.15 lakh crores. So which means technically now you have the router at home, there's no wire. You have the Jio TV, you have absolutely no reason for a DTH, and you watch all of this at one go. So I think technology disruption, even for the technology dummies, is a big takeaway for me, because I look at it as something which is just coming into living room and changing your life completely. The only worry, as I speak to analysts, I think the only apprehension is how much they're going to be charging for the service. So, and obviously, Ms. Ambani didn't open very much on that, but true to Reliance tradition, I think there's a reasonably good chance it's not going to be crazily expensive. I think it'll be a mix. It'll be a mishmash or a comfortable mishmash is my feeling. If that goes through, I think we're in for a pretty serious disruption, actually.
Absolutely, pretty serious disruption right there. And all of us were glued to TV last night watching the India-Pakistan match and India win. And all of that experience would have been just enhanced with the kind of announcements that Reliance Industries has made with this disruption coming in. But you talk about the expense. So, Siddharth, I'd like your expertise here. We've not heard anything on the tariff plans of 5G. Beyond the rollout, but how much more will investors need to shell out, or customers will need to shell out, for this service?
Okay, if I heard you right, your question was on what is the tariff scenario for 5G services in India? What is it going to? So we need to take a step back on what is the need and use case for 5G. I would argue that the telecom companies who have bid, and it's primarily three companies because Adani is not a B2C play, they will have to create a use case for 5G. In the computing world, in the technology world, we see that after an initial takeoff and a certain number of subscribers is achieved, then the companies upsell the latest version. This happens in mobile phones, iPhone. So a need is created by that company, and after a certain point, how much more can you improve in a handset? You can give an even better camera. You can give some more bells and whistles. Samsung has now come out with a phone that folds, and like someone said, it looks like a pencil box. It also has the qualities of a larger device. The stylus has been brought back. Now, when it comes to networks, the first point, people do not purchase networks in India. Because the Indian market for mobility is not a bundled handset market like in many developed markets. People buy their handset separately and then they buy an additional SIM. 4G in India started off for most of the masses as an additional SIM. And that time also there was some element of market disruption that Jio caused. Why am I taking you back into history? Because history provides us lessons for what will happen in the future. There were 3G didn't really take off in India. We were a 2.5G nation till Jio decided to shake up the market through a price war, a tariff war. The network was not fully developed. Even Jio's footprint of towers, its fiber optic backhaul, its fine-tuning of radio antennas, in-building coverage in urban India, that network at the time when Jio started, it used a price warrior strategy. Now, where is Jio today? Jio today is a robust, mature, technically capable network. They have reduce the number of dark spots that they have. Dark spots means there is no mobile coverage. Yet a large portion of India still is dark. Same is the case for Bharti, and a lot of capex has been put in. 5G will come as a layer. If you are in agreement on this point, then how do you woo a customer? The biggest challenge for the advent of 5G in India will be the replacement of handsets.
Yes.
There is a significant 4G handset base in India. It could be upwards of or nearly 300 million or 30 crore as some people would put it. 5G handsets will have to be purchased anew. And even dual SIM handsets will not allow people to go 5G straight away. So the biggest barrier for a customer is not the cost or tariff of his 5G connection. It is his handset.
Very true. Very true.
So I suspect that the market share war, and I am using this word knowing that it may not be a war because the time of crazy over competition in telecom is over. We are now seeing a ARPU focused Jio and a ARPU focused Bharti Airtel, and a Vodafone Idea, which also wants its ARPUs to improve. So between the three of them, who will provide me? Will anybody provide me subsidized handsets for 5G? Will my existing 4G handset be purchased by the network and they will upgrade me? These are big questions. All said and done, the final point I want to make is, while I'm saying all of this to you, it cannot be that if 4G data is priced, let's say at 10 rupees for let's say 1 MB, I'm just coming up with a gross number. It cannot be that can be priced at 20. It may be 12. There could be a premium entry strategy for a few months till handset adoption increases. And then you will see a mass strategy. And in that mass strategy, there could also be a brief tariff war as Jio tries to take away premium Bharti Airtel and Vodafone subscribers by saying, come to me, I am giving you the best 5G network and you will see the difference. And number portability will make that easier, which was not the case 5-10 years back. So that's a pretty long answer to what you asked me. I hope I've been able to provide a different point of view on this.
Absolutely, and it gives a lot of clarity as to why the tariffs may not be substantially higher. It will be the other costs that may actually increase it for the consumers right there. So that point can right there. The big point which was being highly being watched out for was the succession plan, a clear succession plan. Which was being talked about that perhaps we will get. But the end, right at the end of Mukesh Ambani's speech, almost on an emotional note, we did see Mukesh Ambani thinking about how the next generation is actually taking away the responsibilities of and the reins of the various verticals of Reliance Industries being mentored by the current leaders, including Mukesh Ambani. What do you, Krishna, make of the kind of responsibilities being given away, the way it is being transitioned? Is it going to be a lot more smoother? And is it going to be a lot more welcome by the shareholders and investors?
I think Ms. Ambani set the process in motion when he stepped down from the board of Reliance Jio. This was a couple of months ago. And once, the elevation of the sun took over, and it was very clear that between the twins, which is Isha and Akash, it was very clear that one would handle the retail part of the business, one would handle telecom. The big expectation was, or the announcement in that sense was when Isha would officially be given charge of retail. She's already on the board of, she's ED of Reliance Retail Ventures, but the transition that one saw in telecom, one was expecting to see that in retail. Instead, today, he chose to announce the fact that the youngest boy in that sense would be in charge of new energy, which is a huge development. And he also, there's a very interesting line. He just said one thing and just kind of stopped it. He said he's spending most of his time at Jamnagar. He just left it. So it couldn't have been more subtle than that. But I think in terms of a mature outlook, it just begins the process of a completely seamless transition where the three children are running businesses that are absolutely diverse, sets in motion what I believe is the absolute foundation for a solid conglomerate. So I think the job responsibilities between the three have been clearly divided. And of course, there will be a point where they will have to work together. Work responsibilities could overlap in some sense, given the nature of the businesses more than anything else. But I think fundamentally, the good foundation to ensure that a smooth transition will go through has been firmly put in place.
Absolutely. Your takes, Siddharth, and we also missed to see Ambani talk about Reliance Foundation, how passionately she always does that. So she was missing in action today. That was something that most of the viewers would have, definitely taken note of.
I'm sorry, Sakshi, could you please repeat the last part of your question?
I just wanted to ask your view on the succession plan, the way it is being done right now. Not very, very clearly pronounced, but at the same time, we didn't see Nita Ambani today talking about Reliance Foundation.
So, Mr. Mukesh Ambani, at the age of 65, and before that, has been providing clarity to shareholders, because remember, it was the annual general meeting. And he is not known to do press conferences. He speaks rarely, and in the recent past, I would argue, and Krishna can also weigh in on that, he speaks once a year. Now, in such a situation, in a post-COVID world also, where all of us have seen in the recent past lesser and heard lesser of each other, although we have lived more in the virtual world in some ways. I think for shareholders, this is a very comforting signal. This choreographed event, and it's been done for several years now. It started really in 2016 with that Big Bang Geo announcement, and it's been sort of more refined, more elements have been added to it, provides a glimpse into RIL shareholders about the next line. And there was another important statement by Mr. Ambani about next generation leaders and they being better than the first one. I mean, these are my words. That is what is the implication that I understood. And remember, RIL is a behemoth in terms of the current staff. And those who know its old business, the oil business, the chemicals business, know that some of the best brains in that industry have worked for the longest in RIL, and that applies to Geo, that applies to retail. Retail footprint is massive, and physical retail is a employee and headcount dependent business. So in every which way, what Mr. Ambani is doing is to telling people that listen, apart from capex, apart from gigantic projects and very fast execution, there is also a human resource element, and here it is. I am introducing you and gradually grooming the next generation from the promoter family, from the founding family, who will supervise, oversee different verticals of the business. So from a shareholder point of view, it's very clear. And I would also add one more point that it, I think, is a sensible move, because it's sort of giving clarity even within the family of who will do what. And to that extent, not just shareholders of RIL, but shareholders of many other listed companies in India will be looking at it and perhaps expecting similar clarity from the promoters of the companies that they are invested in. Would you agree with this, Krishna?
Oh, most certainly. I think given that gender succession is such a tricky issue in India, given the fact we have joint families and the whole system, which has been the promoter families being the favor, I think this is a perfect example of how to go about the process. I think it certainly sets a process in motion as far as smooth transition is concerned.
Krishna, what do you say overall is the sense, and you shared some numbers about the investments. There was a phase in the recent past till Geo project got mature and it started returning cash, where RIL had gone on a huge capex spree. The second phase was in the first phase of the pandemic, where RIL reduced its debt massively by bringing on board so many investors. Now, what's the third sort of phase in RIL's evolution and transformation looking like to you?
See, I think the best thing that's happened to them is, thanks to bringing investors, the extent to which the balance sheet is leveraged, that's been taken care of. Now, the way I look at it, and this may seem a little ironical or paradoxical, but the ability for them to go out and raise money afresh if they need to gets a little much stronger, because now the point is, if you have the ability to reduce the debt on the balance sheet by bringing high quality investors like Facebook and Google, then the ability for you to go out and raise money in the market becomes very simple. And they have the business model to show it, because they have high quality spectrum. They have a 5G rollout which is waiting out there. So I think to that extent, fundraising, which has always been Reliance's USP, I don't see too much of a problem there. But what stands out in the last 3 to 4 years is very sensible, very robust, and very mature balance sheet management.
Krishna, one more point before I hand it back to Sakshi. There was also a buzz, apart from 5G and apart from sort of solidifying the clarity on the succession plan, so to say. There was an expectation that there would be greater clarity on the monetization of investments and public participation in the retail vertical and the Geo vertical. What's your sense about what did the AGM provide today on that specific expectation?
I think there's an element of subtlety. I think once 5G goes through, the valuation of the telecom venture will take off. To supplement that, there's one part I think which all of us mentioned, but which we obviously didn't pay too much attention to because it was exactly two sentences: the foray into FMCG. So that straight away will increase the retail valuation. The moment valuation takes off in both these entities, I repeat, on the back of 5G, on the back of FMCG, it'll be the perfect time to unlock.
So does that mean, Krishna, does that mean that given the choppy market conditions, given what is happening to global capital flows, interest rate moves, a scenario that didn't prevail before the Ukraine war, and that was a classic black swan event, would it be fair to speculate that all of these developments and the additional valuation aspect that you very correctly pointed out, that the IPOs, so to say, of these two businesses have now been pushed a little into the future?
It has, but also the fact is, if they've been able to raise private equity money, the dependence of IPO money also takes a bit of a beating. So it puts them in a very strong position. So tomorrow, if they have to raise more private equity money, it becomes much easier.
50-50, would Jio get listed, and if so, when? And the retail part?
Jio, my guess is not for at least, I would not imagine, 7 to 8 months till 5G takes off in a big way. And the numbers, because now what he's spoken of is the 4 metros by Diwali and end of next year for every taluk, tehsil and town, if I've got the sequence right. So that straight away increases valuation. And now, given that it's a profit-making entity, a multiple of EBITDA becomes very easy to calculate as opposed to a company that's in the red. So that part will be taken care of. Likewise, for the retail part of the business, he mentioned a top line of 2,000 crores. I'm sorry, 2 lakh crores and an EBITDA of 12,000 crores. That again topped up the FMCG. Just to add a bit on the FMCG business, most people may not remember, he bought over the dairy portfolio of Heritage Foods. There's a company that Chandrababu Naidu used to own in Andhra. So the foray into FMCG has already taken place. And FMCG by itself, if I remember right, is an 8 lakh crore business across India. If he manages to get even a small chunk of that, and the way FMCG stocks are today valued, unlocking value.
But Krishna, does that mean, because FMCG business, Jio is a mature business now, 5G is just a layer. If the FMCG layer is to now be added onto the retail complex, does it mean that the listing of the retail business is therefore even further away?
I would not say it. I think it just opens up more options. I would say when I say unlocking value, I still would put my money on more private equity money coming in. Because the moment private equity money comes in, valuation takes off, and then the ability to list the IPO at a higher price becomes easier. See, the moment, that's the thing. So suppose a person comes at 100 rupees a share, then for me, the ability to list at 150 is far easier. Whereas if I have no private equity money, I start at 100, which becomes a very, very challenging proposition for me.
Now,
absolutely, you're right over there. Of course, we are going to further see, I think, the tussle between Adani and Ambani with the FMCG foray coming in. We've seen how Adani Wilmar has really added on to the value for Adani Group, and now Ambani is stepping into it. Definitely is going to be another key watch as well. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us on this show and sharing all the key highlights of this AGM. We're going to be discussing much more with the external guests also joining in very, very soon, or more on that, onto that update as well. Thank you very much, viewers, for joining us on this.
Bye.
Thank you.